The winter rain fell hard on the empty streets of downtown Chicago. It was past midnight when Detective Michael Thompson finished his shift at the police station. Most people were safe in their warm homes, but Michael knew the streets held different stories. As he walked to his car, he heard a soft crying sound coming from behind the old brick building. Michael stopped and listened carefully. The crying was getting weaker. He followed the sound to a narrow alley filled with garbage cans and broken glass. There, sitting against the cold wall, was a little girl who looked about 8 years old. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her small body was shaking from the cold rain. "Hey there, sweetheart," Michael said gently, taking off his police jacket. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The girl looked up with big, scared eyes. Her lips were blue from the cold. She tried to speak, but only whispers came out. Michael wrapped his warm jacket around her tiny shoulders and knelt down to her level. "My name is Michael. I'm a police officer and I want to help you. Can you tell me your name?" "Sarah," she whispered, her voice barely heard over the rain. "I don't have anywhere to go." Michael's heart broke seeing this innocent child alone on the dangerous streets. He had been a police officer for 15 years, but nothing prepared him for moments like this. He gently picked up Sarah and carried her to his car, turning on the heater to warm her up. "Sarah, do you have any family? Anyone who might be looking for you?" Michael asked, as he gave her a bottle of water from his car. Sarah shook her head, sadly. She explained in broken sentences that her mother had died from drugs 6 months ago. She had been living with different people, but they all eventually told her to leave. For the past 2 weeks, she had been sleeping in different places on the street, eating whatever food she could find. Michael knew he could take Sarah to the children's shelter, but something deep in his heart told him this little girl needed more than just a temporary place to stay. He thought about his empty apartment and his quiet life. He had always wanted children but never got married. "Sarah, how would you like to come home with me tonight? We can figure everything out tomorrow, but right now you need food and a warm place to sleep." Sarah nodded quietly, still afraid, but sensing that this kind man was different from the others she had met. As Michael drove through the quiet city streets, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. When they reached his apartment, Michael ran a warm bath for Sarah while he prepared some soup and sandwiches. He found some old clothes. That would be too big for her, but at least they were clean and dry. As Sarah ate her first real meal in days, Michael watched her carefully, already feeling protective of this brave little girl. "Tomorrow we'll go shopping for some clothes that fit you properly," Michael said with a smile, "and we'll get you enrolled in school. Every child deserves an education and a safe home." That night, Michael gave Sarah his bed while he slept on the couch. As he listened to her peaceful breathing, he realized that finding Sarah wasn't just luck. Maybe they were meant to find each other. He had spent his whole career helping people, but now he had the chance to truly save someone's life. Next morning, Michael started the legal process to become Sarah's guardian. It wasn't easy, and there was lots of paperwork and meetings with social workers, but Michael was determined. He had seen too many children fall through the cracks of the system, and he wasn't going to let that happen to Sarah. Months passed, and slowly Sarah began to trust her new life. Michael was patient and kind, never pushing her to talk about her painful past. He helped her with homework, took her to the park, and taught her how to ride a bicycle. For the first time in her young life, Sarah felt safe and loved. Michael's friends and fellow police officers were amazed by the change in him. He had always been a good man, but now he had a purpose that went beyond his job. He would rush home after work to help Sarah with her school projects or take her to movies on weekends. As Sarah grew stronger and happier, she began to call Michael Dad. The first time she said it, Michael had tears in his eyes. He had rescued a little girl from the streets, but in many ways she had rescued him too from his lonely life. Years went by, and their bond grew stronger. Michael supported Sarah through all the challenges of growing up. He was there for her first day of high school, her graduation, and when she decided to go to college to study medicine. Sarah often told people that Michael saved her life, but she never forgot where she came from or the kindness that changed everything. Sarah's college years flew by quickly. She worked hard in her medical studies, always remembering the man who gave her a second chance at life. Michael was so proud when she graduated from medical school with top honors. He sat in the front row during her graduation ceremony, tears streaming down his face as she walked across the stage. "I couldn't have done this without you, Dad," Sarah said, hugging Michael tightly after the ceremony. "You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Sarah started her residency at Chicago General Hospital, the same hospital where Michael had taken her for checkups when she was young. She chose to specialize in emergency medicine because she wanted to help people in their most desperate moments, just like Michael had helped her. During her residency, Sarah worked long hours and saw many difficult cases. She treated homeless people, drug addicts, and abandoned children. Each case reminded her of her own past and made her more determined to make a difference in people's lives. Michael, now in his 50s, continued working as a police detective. He was respected by everyone at the police station and had solved many important cases over the years. But his greatest achievement was raising Sarah and watching her become a successful doctor. On Sarah's 28th birthday, she surprised Michael with a special gift. She had saved enough money to buy him a small house with a garden, something he had always dreamed of having. Michael was speechless when she handed him the keys. "Dad, you gave me everything when I had nothing. Now I want to give something back to you," Sarah said, her eyes bright with happiness. Michael moved into his new house and spent his free time working in the garden. He grew vegetables and flowers, finding peace in the quiet work. Sarah would visit him every week, and they would cook dinner together and talk about their lives. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Michael told Sarah about his retirement plans. "I think it's time for me to step down from the police force. I've been doing this job for over 30 years, and I want to enjoy my house and maybe travel a little." Sarah supported his decision completely. She knew how hard he had worked all his life and thought he deserved to rest and enjoy his retirement. They planned some trips they could take together when her schedule allowed. Michael's retirement party was a big celebration. Police officers from all over the city came to honor him. Many of them shared stories about how Michael had helped them during difficult cases. The police chief gave a speech about Michael's dedication and service to the community. "Michael Thompson is the kind of police officer every city needs," the chief said. "He doesn't just catch criminals, he changes lives. The best example is his daughter Sarah, who is now saving lives as a doctor." Sarah gave an emotional speech at the party, thanking everyone for supporting her father throughout his career. She told the story of how Michael found her on the streets and changed her life forever. Many people in the room were moved to tears. After retirement, Michael enjoyed his peaceful life. He would wake up early to tend his garden, read books in the afternoon, and cook elaborate dinners for himself and Sarah when she visited. He also volunteered at a local shelter for homeless children, sharing his experience and wisdom with younger social workers. Sarah continued to excel in her medical career. She was promoted to senior emergency doctor and became known for her compassion and skill in treating difficult cases. She often worked double shifts and was always available when the hospital needed her most. The father and daughter had created a beautiful life together. Michael had given Sarah the foundation she needed to succeed, and Sarah had given Michael the family he had always wanted. They supported each other through good times and challenges, creating memories that would last forever. Neither of them could have imagined that their strong bond would soon be tested in the most unexpected way. Life was about to come full circle, and Sarah would have the chance to save the man who had saved her all those years ago. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Michael's life suddenly changed. He had been working in his garden, planting new tomatoes for the summer season. The sun was shining, and he was enjoying the peaceful work when he felt a sharp pain in his chest. At first, Michael thought it was just muscle strain from lifting heavy bags of soil. He sat down on his garden bench and tried to catch his breath, but the pain got worse, spreading down his left arm and up to his jaw. His shirt became soaked with sweat, and he felt dizzy and sick to his stomach. Michael knew these were signs of a heart attack. His police training had taught him to recognize medical emergencies. With shaking hands, he managed to pull his phone from his pocket and dial 911. 911, what's your emergency? The operator asked. This is Michael Thompson. I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm at 425 Oak Street, Michael said, his voice weak and strained. An ambulance is on the way, sir. Try to stay calm and don't move around. Is there someone who can stay with you? Michael wanted to call Sarah, but he knew she was working at the hospital and probably couldn't answer her phone. He lay down on the grass, trying to control his breathing while waiting for help to arrive. The pain was getting stronger, and he began to worry that he might not survive. The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes, but it felt like hours to Michael. The paramedics quickly examined him and confirmed that he was indeed having a serious heart attack. They gave him oxygen and medicines to help with the pain, then carefully moved him to the stretcher. Which hospital do you want to go to? One of the paramedics asked. Chicago General, Michael whispered. My daughter works there, Dr. Sarah Thompson in the emergency department. The ambulance raced through the city streets with sirens wailing. Michael closed his eyes and thought about Sarah and all the wonderful years they had shared together. He wondered if this was how his story would end, and he felt sad that he might not be able to say goodbye to the daughter who had brought so much joy to his life. At Chicago General Hospital, the emergency team was ready when the ambulance arrived. The paramedics quickly transferred Michael to the emergency room, giving the medical team all the information about his condition. Dr. Sarah Thompson was treating another patient when she heard the paramedics calling out the patient's name and address. Her heart stopped when she realized they were talking about her father. That's my dad, Sarah said to her colleague, Dr. Martinez. Please take over my patient. I need to see him. Sarah ran to the trauma room where they had taken Michael. When she saw him lying on the table, pale and connected to various machines, she felt her world spinning. This was the strong, brave man who had saved her life, and now he looked so fragile and vulnerable. Dad, I'm here. Everything is going to be okay, Sarah said, taking his hand gently. Michael opened his eyes and tried to smile when he saw Sarah's face. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't want to worry you. Don't apologize. We're going to take good care of you, Sarah said, fighting back tears while switching into her professional medical mode. The head cardiologist, Dr. Williams, quickly examined Michael and ordered several tests. The results showed that Michael had suffered a major heart attack and needed immediate surgery to open the blocked arteries in his heart. The surgery is risky, but it's his best chance, Dr. Williams explained to Sarah. His age and the extent of the blockage make it complicated, but our team is very experienced with these procedures. Sarah knew that her father's life was hanging by a thread. She also knew that she couldn't perform the surgery herself because he was family, but she could make sure he received the best possible care from her colleagues. As they prepared Michael for surgery, Sarah held his hand and looked into his eyes. Dad, do you remember what you told me that first night when you found me? You said we would figure everything out together. Well, we're going to figure this out too. Michael squeezed her hand weakly. You saved my life in so many ways, Sarah. Having you as my daughter has been my greatest blessing. The surgical team wheeled Michael into the operating room, and Sarah was left standing in the hallway, feeling helpless for the first time since she became a doctor. She realized that all her medical training meant nothing when it came to her own father's life. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Sarah paced the waiting room, unable to focus on anything else. Her colleagues tried to convince her to go home and rest, but she refused to leave the hospital. She called Michael's old friends from the police department, and many of them came to wait with her. Captain Johnson, Michael's former boss, sat beside Sarah and shared stories about her father's brave acts during his police career. Your dad saved more lives than any officer I've known, he said. He's a fighter, Sarah. He's not giving up now. Dr. Williams finally emerged from the operating room, still wearing his surgical scrubs. His face was tired but showed a small smile. Sarah jumped up from her chair, her heart pounding with anxiety. The surgery went well, Dr. Williams said. We successfully opened 3 blocked arteries and restored blood flow to his heart. However, the next 48 hours will be critical. His heart suffered significant damage, and his body needs time to recover. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she knew her father wasn't out of danger yet. She thanked Dr. Williams and asked to see Michael as soon as possible. When Sarah entered the intensive care unit, she saw Michael surrounded by machines that were monitoring every aspect of his condition. He looked so different from the strong, active man who had been working in his garden just hours earlier. Tubes and wires connected him to various devices that were keeping him alive. Sarah pulled a chair next to his bed and took his hand. Even though he was unconscious from the anesthesia, she talked to him softly, telling him about her day and sharing memories from their life together. "Dad, I remember when you taught me how to ride a bicycle. You ran behind me for hours, holding the seat so I wouldn't fall. You never let go until you were sure I was ready. Well, now it's my turn to make sure you don't fall. I'm going to be right here with you." Sarah barely left Michael's side for the next 2 days. She slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair and ate very little. Her colleagues worried about her health, but they understood her dedication to her father. On the 3rd day, Michael began to wake up. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked around the room with confusion. When his gaze found Sarah's face, he tried to speak, but the breathing tube in his throat prevented him from making any sound. "Dad, don't try to talk. You're in the hospital and you're getting better," Sarah said, tears of relief flowing down her cheeks. "You had heart surgery, but Dr. Williams says you're doing very well." Michael squeezed Sarah's hand, letting her know that he understood. Over the next few days, he gradually became stronger. The doctors removed the breathing tube, and he was able to speak in a weak but clear voice. "You saved my life," Michael whispered to Sarah during one of her visits. "No, Dad. The surgical team saved your life. I just made sure you got the best care possible," Sarah replied. "That's not what I mean," Michael said with a gentle smile. "Having you in my life gave me a reason to fight. When I was lying in that operating room, I kept thinking about all the things we still need to do together. I couldn't give up because I couldn't leave you alone." Sarah realized that in a strange way, she had saved her father's life just by being his daughter and giving him something to live for. Their bond had given him the strength to survive the surgery and recover. As Michael grew stronger, Sarah made sure he followed all the doctor's instructions perfectly. She organized his medications, planned his diet, and arranged for physical therapy. She approached his recovery with the same determination and care that he had shown when raising her. The other doctors and nurses at the hospital were amazed by Sarah's dedication. They had seen many families deal with serious illnesses, but the relationship between Sarah and Michael was special. Their love and support for each other was evident to everyone who saw them together. After 2 weeks in the hospital, Michael was finally ready to go home. Sarah had arranged for a home nurse to help with his care, and she planned to visit him every day after her shifts at the hospital. She was determined to make sure her father made a full recovery. Michael's recovery at home was slow, but steady. Sarah moved into his house temporarily to take care of him during the first few weeks. She took a leave of absence from the hospital, something she had never done before, to focus completely on her father's health. Every morning, Sarah would help Michael with his exercises, prepare his heart-healthy meals, and make sure he took his medications on time. She turned his living room into a mini rehabilitation center with exercise equipment and medical supplies. "You don't have to do all this for me," Michael said one day as Sarah helped him with his physical therapy exercises. "You have your own life and career to think about. Dad, you gave up your entire social life to raise me when I was a child. You never complained or made me feel like a burden. Now it's my turn to take care of you," Sarah replied firmly. Michael realized that Sarah had learned her values of dedication and selflessness from him. Watching her care for him with such patience and love made him understand how much their relationship meant to both of them. During Michael's recovery, many of his old friends from the police department came to visit. They brought him books, cooked meals, and shared stories that made him laugh. Sarah was touched by how many people cared about her father and wanted to help with his recovery. One visitor was particularly special. Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman from the neighborhood, came to see Michael every few days. She explained to Sarah that Michael had helped find her missing grandson several years ago when he was still a police officer. Your father worked on my grandson's case for months, even during his off-duty hours, Mrs. Chen told Sarah. He never gave up until he found him. When I heard about his heart attack, I knew I had to help however I could. Sarah realized that her father had touched many lives throughout his career, and now all those people wanted to support him during his difficult time. It was like watching the community return the kindness that Michael had always shown to others. After 6 weeks of intensive care at home, Michael was strong enough to return to some of his normal activities. His doctor was impressed by his progress and attributed much of his success to Sarah's excellent care and Michael's positive attitude. I've rarely seen such a complete recovery from such a serious heart attack, Dr. Williams told them during a follow-up appointment. Michael, you should be very proud of your daughter. Her medical knowledge and personal dedication made all the difference in your recovery. Sarah blushed at the praise, but Michael beamed with pride. She's always been extraordinary. I knew that from the day I found her. As Michael grew stronger, Sarah gradually returned to her work at the hospital, but she continued to visit him every day and monitor his progress carefully. She had learned to balance her professional responsibilities with her personal commitment to her father's health. Michael, inspired by his recovery and Sarah's care, decided to write a book about their story. He wanted to share their journey with others who might be facing similar challenges. He spent his days writing about finding Sarah on the streets, raising her, and how she had saved his life in return. Our story might help other people understand the power of love and dedication, Michael told Sarah as he worked on his book. It shows that when you give love to someone, it eventually comes back to you. Sarah helped her father with research and editing for his book. Working on the project together brought them even closer and gave them a new shared goal. They spent many evenings discussing different chapters and remembering various moments from their life together. The book, titled Finding Each Other, became a local bestseller. Michael and Sarah were invited to speak at conferences about adoption, foster care, and family relationships. Their story inspired many people to consider helping homeless children, or to appreciate the family relationships they already had. During one of their speaking events, a young couple approached them after the presentation. They had been considering adopting an older child from the foster care system, but were worried about the challenges. Michael and Sarah's story gave them the courage to move forward with their plans. You showed us that love can overcome any obstacle, the woman told them. We're going to start the adoption process next week. Michael and Sarah realized that their experience was not just about their own relationship, but about showing others the possibility of creating families through love, patience, and commitment. 2 years after Michael's heart attack, both father and daughter had settled into a new routine that was even stronger than before. Michael had made a complete recovery and was healthier than he had been in years. He followed a strict exercise program, ate carefully, and took his medications religiously. Sarah had returned to her demanding career at the hospital, but made sure to spend quality time with her father every week. Their relationship had deepened through the experience of Michael's illness and recovery. They had learned that they could depend on each other completely, no matter what challenges life brought them. The crisis had tested their bond and made it even stronger. Michael completed his book and donated all the proceeds to organizations that help homeless children. He became a volunteer speaker at schools and community centers, sharing his story and encouraging people to help children in need. His message was simple but powerful. One act of kindness can change a life forever. Sarah was promoted to Chief of Emergency Medicine at Chicago General Hospital. She was only 30 years old, making her one of the youngest department chiefs in the hospital's history. Her colleagues respected her medical skills, but they were even more impressed by her compassion and dedication to her patients. On the 20th anniversary of the day Michael found Sarah on the streets, they decided to do something special. They returned to the same alley where their story began, but this time they brought supplies and food to distribute to homeless people in the area. 20 years ago, this place was the worst moment of my life, Sarah said as they walked through the alley. But it was also the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to me. Meeting you changed everything. Michael looked around the alley and remembered that cold, rainy night when he heard a little girl crying. "I thought I was just doing my job as a police officer, but I was really finding my daughter and my purpose in life." They spent the evening helping homeless people they met in the area. Sarah used her medical training to treat minor injuries and illnesses, while Michael shared information about shelters and social services. They worked as a team, each using their skills to help others. One of the people they helped was a teenage boy who reminded them both of Sarah at that age. He was scared, hungry, and had been living on the streets for several months. Michael and Sarah took him to a shelter and made sure he would receive proper care and support. "Will you check on him?" Michael asked Sarah as they drove home that night. "Of course, and I'll make sure he gets medical care and help with school if he wants it," Sarah replied. "We can't save everyone, but we can try to help as many as possible." Their work that night inspired them to start a foundation called Second Chances that would help homeless children and families. Michael used his connections in the police department and community, while Sarah brought her medical expertise and hospital resources. Together, they created an organization that provided comprehensive support to people in desperate situations. The foundation grew quickly, supported by donations from Michael's former police colleagues, Sarah's medical colleagues, and people who had read their book or heard them speak. Within a year, they had helped over 100 families find housing, medical care, and social services. Sarah met and fell in love with Dr. James Rodriguez, a surgeon at her hospital who shared her values of helping others. When they got married, Michael walked Sarah down the aisle with tears of joy in his eyes. He had watched his little girl grow from a scared child on the streets to a successful doctor, loving wife, and community leader. During his speech at the Ida wedding, Michael said, 22 years ago I found a little girl who needed saving, but the truth is she saved me. She gave my life meaning and purpose. Today I'm not losing a daughter, I'm gaining a son and watching our family continue to grow with love." Sarah and James continued the foundation's work together, and Michael remained actively involved as the organization's president. They opened a clinic that provided free medical care to homeless people and a shelter specifically designed for children and teenagers. Their story had come full circle in the most beautiful way. Michael had rescued Sarah from the streets when she was a vulnerable child. Years later, when Michael faced a life-threatening health crisis, Sarah had used her medical skills and unwavering love to save his life. But their mutual rescue was about much more than those dramatic moments. They had saved each other every day through their commitment to being a family. Michael had given Sarah the stability, love, and opportunities she needed to succeed in life. Sarah had given Michael the joy, purpose, and love that made his life complete. Together, they had created a legacy of helping others that would continue for generations. As they looked back on their journey, both Michael and Sarah knew that their story proved something important about human nature. When people choose to love and care for each other, especially those who seem different or difficult to help, miracles can happen. Their life together was evidence that every person has value and potential, no matter where they start in life. The little girl crying in the alley and the retired police officer working in his garden had both found salvation in their relationship with each other. Their story would continue to inspire others to reach out to those in need and to believe in the power of love to transform lives.